Everyone, welcome back to S'mores Indoors. I am Corey, your host, and tonight for the first episode of the Confessional, this new interview series with some of my favorite YouTubers and friends, I've got one of the top DoorDash YouTubers out there. He is hailing out of St. Louis, Missouri, and his name is Pedro Santiago. Pedro, what's up?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being here tonight. Hope you're
Absolutely.
doing
It's my
well over
pleasure,
there.
man. My
How are
pleasure.
you
Thank you very much.
enjoying? Because we're not too far from each other. Are you enjoying the cooler temperatures we've been getting here recently?
So fall is my favorite season. So when
Yes.
it drops down into the 50s, in that area, even in the 40s at night, I love it. That's if it's a high of like a 60, like it was today, kind of in St. Louis, and it'll drop a little,
Yeah.
you can do a little fire outside.
Yeah.
That's my favorite time of the year. So I'm ready.
Crack those windows open at night.
Absolutely. Get a little breeze. That's my
Absolutely.
favorite time. Yeah.
Hey, I know you were also I think you went to a concert recently in New York. And did you just avoid that flooding? Is that
Yeah, what's funny about that is, I went to New York to see a friend of mine, and the flooding. So I left on the concert was a Wednesday. I left on Thursday. The flooding happened on Friday,
oh wow.
and it was really bad. So some of the people that I know in New York that I was met with sent me these videos and all these memes, and it was wild because the week basically before, it had rained a lot, and I get there, it stopped raining. And then I leave and it starts raining, and the flooding was kind of because I had all this rain. Then I had another downpour, I guess, that Friday morning.
Yeah.
And the public transportation system was all jacked up. The road, it was rough based on what I saw, but I wasn't part of it. But I got lucky, I guess.
Yeah, I was lucky you missed that. But
Yeah, for sure.
good to hear that, and good to hear you're back home and doing your thing on your channel, which I enjoy immensely. I enjoy watching your stuff because I do a little DoorDash. It's kind of not my main thing, but it's like a side thing because I spend way too much money on like movies and crap, so I gotta recoup some funds, on occasion.
Well, DoorDash can be good for that, and I think a lot of people, in my opinion, their way of doing DoorDash and their experience is more similar to yours than mine.
Right.
So I like to hear somebody that has an experience where they can utilize it to their benefit and to have some extra cash flow. And I think it's a really good way for that. So
I was kind of think of it as like a game too. It's like, oh, I got this goal I want to reach. Let's see how quick I can do it.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I like that.
But hey, I know one thing you go by, or one name you go by, is Mr. Bet on YouTube. So
yes,
I wanted to ask you kind of what is your definition of betting on yourself?
I think it's going to depend on, I think if you're talking to somebody that's a teenager, somebody in their early 20s, early 40s, and in their 60s, you're going to get a different answer, as it should be, because life changes, your goals change.
Sure.
What becomes important to you changes. When I was 20, what was important to me then is very different than I'm almost going to be 42, right? So when I talk about or think about like betting on myself, it's more about putting yourself first as far as like how you're planning and looking at your day, your week, your month, your year, so that I believe that if you look at it, I call it like selective selfishness, right? So if you're thinking about things that you want to accomplish, you probably have important people in your life you're trying to accomplish that with and for, right? So if you could bet on yourself and always put like, hey, how is this going to affect me and mine, right? So for me, it's just, it's an ever changing thing, but I think a lot of times the way we look at money, especially in how we work, we're working for a W-2, which is great. I've did it for the most of my life, right? There's true value in that. But I think a lot of us, we have these great dreams, we have these ideas, and we have these thoughts, but not enough of us put action behind it. So for me, the betting on you is just put that action behind it. Think of yourself sometimes versus thinking of your employer or your boss, what a friend might need. Like, you have to be the best version of yourself in order for you to be the best version for the people around you. That's kind of how I look at the bet on you philosophy or whatever. And it's nothing new. Other people have written books on this kind of mindset. But I kind of take it to heart, and I think about it every day and try to show that on the channel. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say too, you can apply that to anything, not just finances. It's health. It's anything like that. So
absolutely
good rules to live by there. But in terms of work and financial side of things, which is kind of how your channel's based. Where does your work ethic come from?
My dad, my dad, my dad, my mother and father were born in Puerto Rico, and they came here when they were kids, right? And they met in high school. But my dad's he's from the dirt, man. He's always been a hustler, multiple jobs. My mother and father got divorced when I was like 11, and my dad at one time had 4 jobs. He had 3 kids. Right. I'm sure he had, child support and these bills and all these things he's trying to do. Right. And he had 4 jobs. He had a W-2. He's a salary manager at a joint. He delivered pizzas for Domino's. He threw back in the day when people used to read newspapers. You remember this, right? He used to throw like the local journal out of a van that we had, and we'd help him do that. And then he had a really part-time job working at like this retail store in a mall. And he did that for a couple of years because he had to do what he had to do. And I always respected him for that, because I think some people tend to fold or feel sorry for themselves, and they just, accumulate all this crazy debt, and they just can't get out of it. And that sucks. Right. But he kind of looked at it like, I'm just going to like really manage my time as effectively as I can, have all these jobs. I need to have these jobs. I'm going to do it for a couple of years and then be really frugal and save what I can. And then he got out of that. So I think I get it from him. But yeah, definitely from him. And my mom was a hard worker too, but my dad laid out the blueprint of like what you can do if you just like get up and just figure it out and trade a little time for money. So,
yeah. And I do remember newspapers because I'm actually still a news editor for a newspaper. So,
well, there you go. They're still around. They're still around.
I need them to hang around for about 20 more years so I can retire. But
I hear you, man.
And the other thing I really enjoy about your channel is how you come at everything with a positive attitude. And is that like built in by family too? Is that how that?
I don't know. I think that's built in by me because I can be. There's been times where my thought or my actions has been negative in the past, and even till now, sometimes, right? I have to catch myself, right? So for me, it's just I have to think about that positivity because I try to be. I'm very grateful for the things I have, the things that I've been able to give myself and others, and the comfortability sometimes I have, and just being able to like live and not feel the stress, because I used to live and feel a lot of stress. And then that makes you not want to be positive. So I kind of had to learn to let some things go and just be like, it's not as bad as you really think it is most of the time. So the positive mindset for me is just, I think I had to force that on me a little bit over the years, right? Of learning and making mistakes and realizing that if you stay in a negative place too long, it can really start to wear down on you. So,
yeah. Well, I will say you're positive most of the time, unless you're doing like earn by time or something. And you're not.
It's really hard to be positive when you're doing earned by time, in my experience. I don't know if you've experienced that, but that's been my experience.
I've tried it, and I can't do it. I have to know at least somewhat of what I'm going to get. So,
yeah.
Because like I said, I try to hit goals, and it's hard to know what you're going to get. So
yeah, if you want to go out there, let's say you're trying to make $50 and
right.
You're like, okay, maybe I can make that in a couple hours, 2.5, 3 hours. But if you don't know what you're making, and after every drop off, it's crap, then it just kind of, it's like defeats the purpose of being out there. Cause it's like, how long am I going to have to do this for? Right.
Exactly. I'm getting ready to get to DoorDash, but I'll bring up Dan's question, as inappropriate as it might be. I've not had this happen. Have you ever DoorDashed and ran into a pervert who answers the door naked?
You go first.
It's not happened to me. So
I have never had somebody answer the door naked. I've had women answer the door in like robes and things like that, but never naked. No, never.
Okay. Well, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Definitely.
So when it comes to DoorDash, how and when did that come about for you? And was that your first intro into gig work?
No, I actually started Uber being a driver, like the rideshare. Yeah. Okay. So I had, there was a time, several months, I didn't have a car. This was maybe 5 years ago. Had some car issues, and it saved a little bit more money to get a brand new car and paying for it versus just getting like a car note. So I said, you know what, I'm going to, I'll take some Ubers to work. And, at that time, My wife had a car, so we just had one car versus two.
Right.
So I learned about Uber through that, and I had something I wanted to pay for, but didn't want to dip into any savings. And I said, you know what? I had a car then again. I said, I think I could do Uber on the side to pay for this trip, right? And just do it like one day a week and do it maybe for an hour or two after I get off my W-2. At that time, I was working at a casino. And I started doing that, and it was good. I kind of like fell for it. It was like, It was exciting. For me, the rideshare was like, it was like a game, like you mentioned, because okay, who am I going to pick up next?
Right.
Okay, is this going to be a man, a woman? What kind of mood are they going to be in? Like you see a name, it's like, okay. And it became like a game, and I like playing it. The money was good. I really enjoy meeting new people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did Uber, you're picking up. When I started, I did a lot of nighttime runs. So you're picking up people from bars and clubs, and most of those people are in good mood. Sometimes they're not, but it was always just kind of like a fun adventure. And the money was pretty good. So I was able to pay for that trip in a shorter amount of time than I anticipated. And then I just kind of kept doing it and put it in my back pocket as I was doing my W-2 every once in a while when I wanted some extra money. So, and then the DoorDash came because I just recognized that was another app, and I signed up, and then I kind of did that. And that over time just kind of took over the ride share because pandemic and all that kind of happened. So people weren't going as many places, but they wanted stuff to the home. So then that's where DoorDash came in. So,
right. I kind of started DoorDash after pandemic. I guess 2021, I started doing some. I'm assuming that the COVID really blew it up.
Oh, big time.
Crazy proportion.
Yeah, I never did it before, obviously. I wasn't pre-COVID driver, but definitely the numbers and analytics say that it would not be, if we didn't have that, DoorDash would not be what it is now. It'd still be around, clearly, but it would not be ingrained in people's everyday lives because people just, the way that they looked at stuff just became so different. And now that more people were accustomed to this new level of convenience, and having anything delivered in a pretty quick amount of time, I think it's definitely happened that way. So,
right. So since that early time of you doing Uber to now, how's the state of gig work changed, you think?
Man, I think based on what I hear from people that have been doing it for a while, it's definitely the earnings are down overall for most people. Especially if you came in during the pandemic, and you're trying to make money now. It's harder. You got to have more apps. Before, maybe you only had DoorDash. Now you got to have DoorDash and Uber and Instacart, maybe Grubhub and other apps, and Walmart, Spark. So I think the peak and the height of the gig economy has happened, and now we're in this like new normal of like these ebbs and flows of, hey, some days are going to be good for drivers, some days are going to be bad. I think the gig companies definitely play games with drivers with what they show us and what they don't, and how they can make you feel and all that. I still think it's a really good opportunity to make money. I think for most people, I think you used to be able to do it maybe full time and think like I can do this forever. I don't think that anymore. No. I think if you're doing it full time, there's going to be some point where the end's going to be coming, right? It's not sustainable long term, but I think part time and for some side hustle cash, I think it's going to last for a while. So.
Yeah, it's amazing to me some days how it changes, like how much you can make one day and then the next day it's like nothing.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird like that. But moving on from there, what do you think the future is for gig work? Do you see any new options coming about that you kind of predict?
Oh, big time. I think the gig economy is going to continue to grow. Financial analysts and economic people and all the people that know more than you and I about that kind of stuff have said that, and numbers have shown it. The trend is a lot of sectors of W-2 and jobs are going into the gig economy 1099 type work for various reasons. Even something like nursing is going that route. You could be a certain forms of nursing and travel nurses and things they're gigs. You go on certain websites and you can put in, I guess, credentials or whatever, and you could get a gig, and it's a 1099 versus having to work for a particular hospital company, right? And that's just to name one. There's a lot. And there's a lot of new companies coming up that are starting either food delivery or medical courier or shopping apps. So this is, for me, I think it's the future. I think what happened with COVID, it shifted a lot of people's mind on how they make money, how they look at money, and what they value. and the traditional 9 to 5s aren't going anywhere. But I think as time goes, we'll see those type of jobs become less and the gig economy become more. Yeah. So I think it's definitely going to continue to grow.
Well, I think since 2020, a lot of jobs have changed. I'm primarily working at home unless I have things to cover, meetings or events or things like that. So it's a different world now post COVID, I think. So
oh, for sure. I mean, I could envision a time, and we've had it for a while because I've used it when I worked at the casino. There's temp agencies, right? So where we would use a temp agency for when we had big events and things. We would put in a bid, and hey, next month we need 5 workers on this date, or we'd be able to call in that morning and say, hey, can you send me somebody? I just had a whole bunch of dishwashers call out for my main buffet. I need 5 people today or tonight. And gig workers would come up, and or temp workers would come in, and they would work a day or 2, and that'd be it, right? And it's kind of like a gig, but it's temp. So it's I could totally envision some time where the food service or a McDonald's or whatever is using a temp agency, but it's also just like it's formed into the gig, right? Yep. So you go to a website, and all these companies have these gigs, and you could sign up for them and work a day, work a week. So I think that's going to continue. We're going to see it in a lot of different jobs beyond just the temp type jobs and beyond. Imagine remember you used to go to Craigslist, and you could find jobs on Craigslist, and a lot of those jobs were gigs, and there was a whole tab that was like gig related. So I think it's going to continue, and I think it's good. It's 10 years from now, the workforce is going to be very, very different.
Could you see a time when some of these restaurants are kind of doing their own gig work for delivery and stuff like that, and moving away from the DoorDash?
Oh yeah, I think some do it already. I think it's a lot of the more mom and pop kind of places, but DoorDash is still going to be around. But I definitely think some places are just kind of tired of paying the crazy fees and not knowing and trusting, hey, what kind of driver is going to show up? Are they really going to deliver it? So I think the merchants have definitely seen some issues, especially on a mom and pop level, to where your margins are like really, really thin. But yeah, no, I think there's going to be that'll happen as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of pioneered the gig convention, right? You at the Gig Con. How many years have you been doing that now?
So we've done 2. So we did this past year was in Denver, Colorado. The first one last July was in St. Louis, Missouri, where I live. And we did do one virtual event October of 2022, so a year ago. So we've done 3 events, 2 in person, 1 virtual, and it's been interesting, man. It's a wild ride to put those events together. You never know what to expect, but it's a fun thing. It was an idea I had as I was doing a ride along, shooting a video one day, and I said, hey, it would be cool if we all just got together one day, and would you guys want to do that and meet in person and just chop it up, and and the response was like, yeah, I think that would be cool. And I had never seen anybody do anything like that, but obviously a lot of companies and brands and people put conventions on. So I figured, why not try it and see what the response is like? And overwhelmingly, it's been pretty good so far. And I continue to try to do things like that in the future. So
what's made you the most proud about getting that started, and what have you seen that's as excited you about it?
Connecting other people with other people that would not have maybe they wouldn't never been connected if I didn't put them together. That is what I'm most proud about with that. Because I can convey, and we can convey a lot on just doing a video or a live, right? And that's great. There's value in that. But when you are trying to make something and build something and start something from scratch, organically, people are going to meet each other that if you didn't have that idea or that action, they might not have never connected. And a lot of great people have connected and formed friendships from these kind of events. So that's what I'm most proud about. And that's kind of the intention behind them, is to bring people together socially versus just virtually. Because I think a lot of us, we're always in our phones. We meet people that way, but we really don't connect. You really can't connect until you shake somebody's hand, give them a hug, have a meal with them. That's different, right? So these conventions are kind of geared for that. So that's what I'm most proud of with that.
What were the in a logistical state of things? What were the challenges of doing it in Denver when instead of your home city?
Oh, it's funny you ask that because I get that question, and it's interesting because you would think it would have been harder doing it in Denver, but in a lot of ways it was easier. Now, I had never been there, but I knew people there, so that did help. Right. I had somebody find the venue for us, so that was cool. So while it's not easy to put something together if you're not there, when we did it in St. Louis, I had to do a lot more manual labor myself, right? So we did it in a park. I rented a pavilion. I had to hang the signs up. I put all the signage, the signs around the park. I'm setting up things. I'm setting food up. I'm breaking up and down table sets, canopies. I hired 6 or 7 people that were gig that I got from like a media site that were gig workers, basically.
Yeah.
So and then the setup, the breakdown in Denver, I didn't have to do any of that because we paid the hotel staff to do that. So in some ways, it was easier to do it in Denver and never had been there before, right?
Yeah.
But definitely the traveling. I mean, we drove to Denver, drive back. We stayed there for almost a week. That was cool. But so they had different things that I thought were difficult and different things that were easy. But the St. Louis one and doing it for the first time and not knowing anything about putting on an event like on your own, I had never done that before. I had just done stuff at like casinos and work, but that's different because you got a team of people helping.
Right.
So the Denver one in some ways was easier, but the St. Louis one, we'll never be able to replicate the first one because that was just such a unique, fun thing. And I'll never forget that week, that whole couple of days and all that, and the people I met for the first time that I still connect with now. The St. Louis one was awesome, man. It was cool.
It's awesome. Well, it sounds like you went full circle because I think you said you had gig workers for your gig con. So
I did, which was cool. I thought it was awesome because a lot of them, they all had a great time. They all did great. I put cash in their hands that day. I paid them, I paid them okay. They were happy with it. And it wasn't like they had to do a whole lot, but they had to work a little. But it was great because even after that event, months after, one of them helped me with something else I did. I have the number of all of them. So I feel like if I did something in St. Louis, I could reach out. I can at least get a couple of them. So that was really cool. I wanted to do that because gig workers have to help each other out. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And we, it felt good to be able to provide somebody with an opportunity. So.
Yeah, definitely. So, I've ordered DoorDash a handful of times while I've been in St. Louis, and I've never had you deliver my food. So obviously I only know you from YouTube. But how did YouTube get started for you?
I used to just watch YouTube a lot. All kinds of things. And then I guess the algorithm, because I don't remember going into the Google search engine and typing in how to do DoorDash. I didn't do that.
Right.
But I remember, this is how I look at it. I think I got Uber on my phone as a driver and I got DoorDash, and I think the AI and everything just knew, and it started feeding me, it knew I was an Uber driver. And I think it gave me a couple of videos and I saw it. Oh, what's this? Okay. And I would see some Uber ones, right? It's a channel. His name is Eddie Doyle. He's kind of a big channel. He's an Uber rideshare driver. And I would see his videos and I saw a couple of DoorDash videos. I'm like, this is interesting. Okay, let me see what they got to say. And I started kind of liking their perspective. I was learning some things. I liked the personalities. And I always thought like, man, I run into crazy things on my rideshare, pick up crazy situations. And then I was doing DoorDash. I'm like, this is kind of weird. And I said, I think I could do what those people are doing. I want to give it a try. Let me try that. And when I try something, I go all in. So I said, I'm going to do it for a year. At that point, I decided to bet on myself. I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave doing what I'm doing here. I'm going to go into food delivery. At that point, I wanted to start my own maybe food delivery company. That was the thought at first. And then I wanted to do YouTube, one video every day for 1 year. I said, I'll give myself a year. If I don't make anything out of a year, then I'll stop. And I'll make a video every day. And so that's how I got into the YouTube. So I had a little extra time because I was used to working a lot of hours. Now I was working a little bit less, but still full time. And I had more free time on my hands. I could work whenever I wanted. And I said, okay, now I'll just fold in some YouTube. And it just kind of took off. About 3 or 4 months in, I started gaining a little traction. I was like, okay, this is fun. I got monetized and I was getting paid. I was like, all right, now it's fun and I'm making money. Okay, let me continue and see what we can do. So that's how it started.
I'm guessing in the same vein, the most rewarding part of it has probably been meeting new people and connecting with people. Is that safe to assume?
Man. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Right. I've met other people. I have a podcast with a guy named Hannibal. He has a channel, Hannibal is Hungry. We're really, really good friends. I would not have met him if I didn't start the channel. So the connections that I've made, and that's just to name one person, right? But like, there's so many others, right? Yeah, I mean, that to me, it's so weird because I was never somebody, I didn't have social media, like I was on Facebook and deleted it. I'm not into the Reddit. I wasn't into MySpace growing up. I'm not on Instagram. So like the only social media I've ever really known is YouTube. So it's been interesting to say the least.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, I enjoy watching, and it kind of connects me to St. Louis a little more because I love the city. And I'm going to kind of go into that now.
I'd like to hear more about your St. Louis life, man. Maybe I didn't remember that you were from this area, or
Well, I used to work for a newspaper, like I said, in the Metro East area, and I would go. To complete transparency, I was married at the time, and we weren't like getting along great. So I would come to St. Louis almost like 4 nights a week. And I'd go have a drink at the top of the Hilton, that bar at the top of the Hilton.
Oh,
kind of watch the Cardinals games from there. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I just kind of grew a love from it from there. I'd been, several times because I didn't live too far, but
yeah.
But have you lived there? Has that been your home since you were young?
Well, yeah. So I was born in Chicago,
okay.
and we moved here 10 or 11. So St. Louis is home. I've lived here a majority of my life. Yeah, right. But I still I've got family in Chicago. I love the city of Chicago. I try to make it there as often as I can, but St. Louis is definitely home.
So beyond the fact that it's home for you, what makes St. Louis a special city for you?
Yeah, I don't know how you think about it, but I feel like St. Louis gets a bad rap, and I see it.
Bring that up.
I see it sometimes. I see it sometimes. I've lived in areas that aren't great. I deliver to areas that aren't great. I deliver some areas that I think other drivers would be like, I would never go there, right? But St. Louis is a really interesting city to me because I haven't been around a lot. I've traveled enough, though, to know St. Louis is, it's a smaller city, not a big metro city,
right.
But there's elements that I enjoy of a big city without it being too big. What I mean by that is there's some great places to eat. We're actually a pretty diverse city, in my opinion, right? Yeah. A lot of different cultures, and you can go on South Grand and there's 20 different restaurants from 20 different areas of the world, right? And yes. You could walk those 7 or 8 blocks and have Mediterranean food, Ethiopian food, Filipino food, Puerto Rican food. Like it's awesome, right? So I think St. Louis for me, I like it because it gives me if I want the big city vibe, if I want to go to a great game, or go to a cool bar, or go to a nice festival, I can have some of that in St. Louis, right? Without having to drive really far. But also, if I want to just have a quiet night, I can do that as well somewhere, right? You can go somewhere more south of St. Louis and have great stuff down there, right? Have a bonfire type deal or whatever. So St. Louis affords me the ability to kind of have different types of experiences versus living in just a big city. I was just in New York, and it's like, God, this is it's the biggest, one of the biggest cities in the world. It's like you feel that, right? And you have to really drive far out to get a different experience, and you don't need to do that here. So I like St. Louis. The cost of living is really good. I love the people that live here. People think, violence is an issue here per capita. We don't have great crime rates, but I don't see that because I'm not a criminal. So, you just got to know where to stay out of. And I feel comfortable going anywhere, so I like it.
I feel like I've always felt safer there than any other city I go to on a regular basis. And I always said it feels like, to me, it's the city that feels the most like a small town. If that makes sense at all.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. Yeah. And we have a lot of cool neighborhoods here, right? So and a lot of other cities have this. I've experienced it, and I'm sure other ones I haven't have it. That ones I haven't experienced have it too. But like we've got these cool Dogtown and Maplewood and the Grove, and you got Tower Grove Park and Forest Park. Beautiful. We have a beautiful zoo, free zoo. I mean, we have so many things here that you could do in little neighborhoods, and I like that. So
yeah, I was going to mention Forest Park is right in the center of the city, and it's actually bigger than Central Park. So a lot of people don't know that. So
I didn't know that. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it is a pretty big park, and we got 2 or 3 museums there. You got the zoo. It's a neat area for sure.
Wonderful zoo, and it's also free. So
it is. Yeah, I mean,
we should be hired by the
St. Louis transportation industry or something. I've definitely done a video showing my city and the arch, and I should get a check from somebody at some point, but I'll wait.
Yeah, the board of tourism. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Now, the one other thing I want to ask about St. Louis is I've heard people from there say this, and it kind of shocks me that they say the arch is overrated. Do you have that same philosophy or no?
I've been in the arch. I've been in the arch twice. Once when I was little, younger, and once maybe when I was mid-20s or early 30s. I don't know. I think it's really, this is what I would say. I think to go up into the arch, kind of overrated. It's not that big of a deal. You get up there, it's like, okay, I'm looking down, but that can be any, you can say that about, Empire State Building. I've been in that, and I was like, okay, it's kind of cool. But when I think of monuments, I think about it from 2 different ways. How is the view as far as if you're not in it? And I think coming into St. Louis, if you're driving in from Illinois,
yes,
and you're coming in, beautiful view, one of the best views, and I've driven a lot of places. Coming into a city is St. Louis. You got the Mississippi, you got this beautiful arch, which is very original piece of architecture, and you have these cool buildings, and you got the awesome new Busch stadiums right there. You got an old vibe feel of a town. You got the railroads right there. Like it's a beautiful thing, especially at nighttime. Absolutely beautiful in my opinion. So from that standpoint, I think it's underrated. Now, if you're talking about just going up into the actual arch itself, not that big of a deal for me. So
yeah, I know you talked about restaurants and games and stuff like that, but what are some of your favorite things to do just in free time there in the city?
Oh man, I'd like to say I could name a whole bunch of cool things I do, but we are at this point. I like to relax, man. So we don't go out a lot, and if we do something, it's probably like a family function. Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I would go out and do certain things, but I mean, the highlight of our days now in my recent life is to say, let's just go to this local restaurant,
right,
and try a local place out. We like to do that. And St. Louis has a lot of that. During the summer and stuff like that, there's always some kind of like festival or something going on at one of the local parks. We like to do things like that, but that's about it. So
yeah. Well, I think I'm a few years older than you, and we're getting to be old men, so it's kind of just lay around the house.
Listen, man. Yesterday, so we were supposed to go to like those pumpkin patch things. We took our daughter, I have a 2-year-old. We took her last year, and she remembered it, and we picked some pumpkins, and you decorate them, all that stuff, right? Family stuff. Yeah. And I was looking forward to that. We were looking forward to that. We didn't wind up going because things happened. So the highlight of my day yesterday, and it was actually a good day, I did some yard work. I, raked the leaves, and I like doing that kind of stuff. Actually, it's like therapeutic for me. So I did that, and it was nice outside. We went on a nice little walk, we cooked dinner, and that was my day. So as you get older, I think things like what makes you have a good day changes. Because, 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's a Saturday, it's nice out. I'm going out with the boys. We're going to hit the bars. We're going to do this. We're going to go to the casino. We're going to get in some trouble, right? Yeah. Now, it gets 9 p.m. I'm ready to go to sleep. So that's my life has just shifted. So,
well, you sit in that car so long, and it's like,
oh man, you're right about that. You're right about that.
And
what's the longest amount of time you've done gig work? Like one day, how many hours have you done? What's the max?
Gosh, I do like I know I did like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. one day.
Okay,
I had a car repair I needed to do, and the total was going to be like $700+, and I made it in 3 days. So I just pushed and had that goal. It's amazing how much you can make when you have a goal and you just keep pushing towards it. So,
well, it's I think if you look at the apps as an opportunity and don't look at them as a W-2. So W-2, you go in, you clock out, you know what you're going to make, right? And you can calculate it. Even if you're getting overtime, you calculate, right? But like, you have a W-2, they can send you home early. They could do this, they could do that. They could, if you're working in the service industry, it's like, okay, if you're working on tips, you might want to make 100, but if nobody walks in, you can't make 100, and there's hours of operation, so you got to leave or you get cut, right?
Yeah.
And you can't make any money. So with this, it's like you said, you work, okay, I want to make $200 a day. Let's say, okay, maybe I have to work 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Maybe I have to work less or more. But like, if you have an actual goal, you just work till you hit your goal.
Right.
And you figure out, make sure you're not burning too much fuel and you're good. Right. So I think that's not, I think a lot of us have a goal, but some of us, I think, just go out there. It's like, all right, I'm just going to see what I make today. And then they're like surprised when I didn't do well. You got to have a goal to start your day. So.
Right. And I think that I love it too, because there's some days I'll take a delivery and then I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling this today, and I'm just going home. I can't do it today.
I've done that a couple times. I've probably done that. Yeah, maybe a dozen, not a lot, but I'm doing maybe a dozen times where I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this today. The first hour or two just wasn't great. I was like, you know what? I don't want to give my energy. Let me just do something else. So I can relate to that.
Yeah. So we are rapidly approaching Halloween. We talk a lot of movies on here, horror movies. Are you a fan of the Halloween season?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I don't really like dress up or anything.
Right.
I mean, we got some pumpkins sitting out in the front. And I got a couple little decorations, but and I'll have a thing of candy if kids come, if we happen to be home. But Halloween isn't like a time of the year that I'm like ready and like super excited.
Yeah.
I like the fall season, but Halloween isn't like something that I like really look forward to necessarily. I know some people really get into it. I've just never been that guy.
Right. Well, I'll ask you a different question. Do you have a favorite movie of all time?
For like scary movies?
Just either way. You could, if you have a favorite movie or just a favorite movie in general.
I love movies. I used to have a wall like that. You have behind you?
Yeah.
I had that. And I sold all these DVDs. Like, we had this big garage sale years ago and sold like most of them. And I got a tub somewhere, but now everything's streaming, so I don't really need them. But I used to Blockbuster Video, Hollywood Video. I'd buy the 4 movies for $20. Like, I'd buy everything, right? So, big movie guy. Favorite movie of any genre is really hard, because there's a lot of different movies.
It is a tough question.
It's such a hard, because I could go with the PC, like, okay, the Godfathers are fantastic, Shawshank Redemption, Field of Dreams, Rocky 2. I love Rocky 2. Like, there's so many great movies. The Dark Knight's fantastic, Inglourious Bastards, Citizen Kane. I mean, there's just all, like, and there's another 100 I could name, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's just so many. Reservoir Dogs, I like Quentin Tarantino. I think he's fantastic. The Goodfellas, like, there's just so many good movies. As far as like horror, I didn't watch a lot of that. I do remember. I always thought like the Chucky movies were kind of cool, because they're so, looking back at them now, they're so odd. Like, they're so violent and weird, and and like, it's like a little doll, like, but it's like how he got into the doll. Like, I always thought that was kind of cool, interesting kind of concept. And obviously culture, like the cult phenomenon behind Chucky now, I think they're even doing a new one or something, but it's obviously a big deal, and it's lasted the test of time. But movies, man, it's tough. It's like, I mean, there's just so many good ones. Yeah.
I think I try to remember back, I think the first movie I ever saw that I can remember is Jaws 2. So,
okay.
Once I got back to see the first Jaws, I always say that's my favorite movie of all time.
Really? Jaws? Okay.
Yeah.
That's up there. Yeah.
And horror was a thing that my mom, I guess she was a fan of, and she made me watch all that crap when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was only child. She was single mother, and we watched all that stuff. So,
What about one of the first ones I remember seeing too was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I have a memory of watching that with my grandma, weird, and my sister, having it on in the background and like seeing that guy wield that big chain. I'm like, what is happening? And
Grandma's
then the other
watching
one,
Leatherface in there. Let's go on.
yeah, what's happening? And then the other one was Hellraiser, the guy with the. Yeah, I remember watching that and being freaked out by that, man, as a kid. Like, what is this?
Dan Shine in the chat there is a huge Hellraiser fan. So
yeah, I remember seeing it. I'm like, what is happening here? And like Candyman and like, so I remember seeing those, but I never got it. I never really got into that genre necessarily.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
My favorite horror movie, I guess, of all time is Halloween, the original from '78. So.
Oh, Jamie Lee Curtis and yeah. How many of those have they made now? Didn't they just come out with them like last year or something?
They've had a ton, and I'm stupid enough to buy them all. So, although most of them.
Well, I think they know that there's definitely an audience still for it.
They make huge money with those movies.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So is there going to be another one, or is that?
I'm sure. Okay,
yeah.
They'll always be.
At some point, it'll be Jamie Lee Curtis's like granddaughter or something, and she'll just take over the whole franchise.
There you go. Well, she had her granddaughter in the last series, so
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but hey, I want to thank you for being on. Talked about some cool stuff. Maybe we'll get on and talk movies sometime. We can.
I would love to do that, man. I think we should definitely do that.
Right.
Movies is something that there's a lot. Have you ever seen a movie called The Whale Rider?
I have not.
Okay, so that's my homework for you.
Okay.
So we'll figure it out behind the scenes, but you should watch The Whale Rider. Interesting movie, and then I would love to talk movies one day. That'd be fun.
I'll do that. Well, I'll find some homework for you, and we'll.
There you go.
We'll bounce back and forth. So
sounds good.
I want to thank everybody out in the chat tonight. Some new faces. I'm sure they came from Pedro's channel. And I thank you all for stopping by and watching our interview. Had a great time here. And Pedro, once again, thanks a lot for being on.
Thanks, man. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome. And take it easy, guys.